a disruption in our system. I'm here on behalf of incarcerated men and women. We need the governor to listen. It is his responsibility to straighten it out. It's his responsibility to make sure that people who work in these places are safe. It's his responsibility to make sure that the people who are housed here, the residents, are safe. We're going to keep on disrupting this system until he do something.
Welcome to The Real News. I'm Eddie Conway, coming to you from Baltimore with this episode of Rather Than Bars. An unlikely union of formerly imprisoned people joined with ASME, who represents the Correctional Officers Union, for a caravan rally circling 4 prisons in the Jessup area, including the only women's prison in the state of Maryland. The organizers protest unsafe conditions inside the prisons, including no testing for COVID-19, not enough protective equipment like gloves and masks, few medical personnel, and few inmates released from the governor's order of 2000 to be released in Maryland amidst the COVID-19 outbreak.
I want to start off by extending a special thanks to all of the formerly incarcerated men and women that's here. Please give yourselves a hand. All the formerly incarcerated people that's here. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you, Denise Gilmore and Joe Cox, because when I extended the offer to say, hey, let's do something that they've never done in the history of Maryland. Let formerly incarcerated people and correctional officers stand side by side.
It's a great stance because they know the conditions on the outside. We as employees are given from the employee aspect, but the people who are former incarcerated, they know the conditions of living in these 24/7, so they can help tie our message together pretty much.
That's not something you get every day.
That's right.
So that sends a strong message to any and everybody that, number one, whether you're incarcerated or not, we are all human beings. And we stand here today to say, guess what? All of those people been in there for 30 years, they human. All of those people who've been in there fighting and struggling, trying to maintain their dignity and their humanity, they are human.
Prisoners' rights advocate and founder of Out for Justice, Nicole Hanson, and managing director of Maryland Justice Project, Etta Myers, along with family members of incarcerated loved ones, protested outside the front gates of the Maryland Correctional Institute for Women, calling for the immediate release of Maryland's longest-serving incarcerated woman, Irena Pretty, as well as other women behind bars.
Free her! Free her! Free her! Free her! Free her! Free Irena!
Free them all!
Free them all!
Everybody deserves to live!
Our women should not be sitting behind those bars, thrown in an infirmary that has no medical equipment to protect them.
Free Irena! Free all of them!
Our women deserve access to immune boosted food.
And it was so Botox, you couldn't hear my mother.
Our women deserve better.
She got sick, she got COVID in here. And they rushed her out and brought her right back.
It is
we
no
don't even
way.
know how she doing.
It is no way
don't
the
make no
Department of
sense.
Corrections is adequately reporting the women that's being tested because they're not tested in there.
Under pressure from activists and advocates, Maryland's governor signed an executive order for the release of 2,000 prisoners April 19th. These 2,000 prisoners were to be released from jails, prisons, and detention centers. But prison abolitionists said the number of people who were actually released is around 70 to 80 prisoners, while people who have made parole remain in prison and detainees who are being held for misdemeanors remains in detention centers without bail. Representatives from ASME, who represents the correctional officers, was told a month ago in a meeting with Secretary of Public Safety, Robert Green, that every employee would get tested for COVID-19. Governor Larry Hogan announced on May 20th that there would be universal testing in Maryland prisons. But ASME reps, along with prison right advocates, say that Hogan has not sent out a plan for implementation. As of May the 11th, there were reports of 200 cases among uniformed officers and 57 among inmates at Jessup. There's no way to tell the exact number without testing.
Governor Hogan did reach out and give us some tests, but he only gave it to DJS and corrections. Our brothers and sisters over at MDH need testing. They have a lot of patients over there who are positive. A lot of our staff is going in and out of there and risking their lives. So we need testing. We need continuous testing for all state 24/7 employees. It's just ridiculous that we can't get it. Places have hot spots. We have facilities in places like PG County with severe hot spots, severe cases out there, 10, 12,000 cases. We need testing for these people in these facilities. NVA doesn't need to be opening next week. It doesn't need to be going back to work. It's very dangerous for these patrons that work in these places. So we just need Governor Hogan to rethink the reopening process. And if he's going to reopen, he needs to protect the employees a lot better than he has.
Supposedly, the Maryland Department of Health is supposed to be rolling out this protocol for testing for all, but we haven't seen it.
Advocates are calling for people to be released on their own reconnaissance in lieu of cash bail. Deliver citations rather than arrest people for minor offenses. Release those charged with misdemeanors. Release the most vulnerable prisoners, along with providing personal protection equipment for people inside, among other demands.
It don't make sense that somebody would have to sit there and die because of his lack of doing anything. He hasn't done anything, period. That gesture to release people when they are 4 months within their release date, that's nothing. He can do more. And I suspect that unfortunately, if he don't do more, we're going to see more deaths in our correctional facilities. It's just a matter of time. The Center for Disease Control, the CDC, have already warned that this coming fall is going to be even worse than what it is now. So we need to get in front of that. We don't need to wait until September and October when we start to see the bodies pile up.
As a second outbreak looms, it will become more difficult to protect prisoners and employees who bring COVID-19 home to their communities.
Women have to be transported out the facility in order to be tested. You gotta be damn near dead to get out of these walls, to get proper medical equipment. Governor Hogan, your order is not working.
Nope.
Let our people go. Second chances. Free our women.
The Real News will continue to bring you update on the conditions inside the Maryland prison system. For The Real News, I'm Eddie Conway.